Welcome everyone in Nigeria and indeed the rest of the world. I am Gimba Umar and this is State of the Nation. Right behind me, data feeds are still coming through all in one place simultaneously on all our platforms. Be part of the show, tweet at Gimba Umar CTV and use the hashtag State of the Nation to air your thoughts. Let's get started with the way things stand at the moment. It's 315 days to Saturday, 16th of February 2019, general elections. Political campaigns have already started, albeit low-key, but in its fullness. That may seem the dominant upside in the country right now to the favor of the politicians. What have we seen? Brutal politics, political wars between the ruling APC and the opposition PDP over a list of looters both parties released in the wake of the challenge by the PDP National Secretary, Kola Olobodino. The parties themselves are faced with internal problems, from the convention of the PDP and the Siraki-Dixon Reconciliatory Committee to unite aggrieved members, to the APC's disapproval of tenure elongation of the key officials of the party, including the NWC by the president and the reconciliation efforts by the party as well. In all these, how much consideration is given to a fragile economy? The former presidential aspirant and also an economist, Galtima Liman, joins us from our Abuja studios, as well as another economist and chartered accountant, a member of the Institute of Management of Nigeria, Zakabala. He joins me here in our Lagos studios. I want to thank you, gentlemen, both of you, for coming on the show at this time. If you can hear me in our Abuja studios, Galtima Liman, it's been established by professionals such as yourself and Mr. Zakabala with me in the studios here that election campaigns are the greatest threat to economic growth. Question is, how much of that is affecting the Nigerian economy as we build up to the 2019 general elections, putting in view the internal wranglings seen in party politics today?
Yes, it's absolutely important that we look at that premise in the first place, that politics is actually the greatest threat to economic development. I have my doubts about that statement. Democracy, what's going on in terms of party politics, in terms of the primary elections, in terms of the oppositions to tenure elongations and all this, these are normal activities preceding electoral campaigns. And it is when you go through those rough and tumble and emerge as a leader that you will begin to understand the challenges of leadership.
So in this situation where you do not stand with that line of thought, now that we've had some economists also, for instance, the managing director of financial derivatives company, Bismarck Rouhani, in his submissions late last year, said that money supply in the economy will increase in 2018 due to political campaigns, which you stand with. But what relationship exists between increased money in the economy and economic growth, do you think?
Well, you see, like Bill Gates had actually mentioned with respect to whether you would spend on infrastructure or human capacity building. These are the kind of challenges that face leadership, political leadership. And some of the greatest mistakes that developing countries make is we fail to realize that politicians on one side are different from strategic think tanks. Nations that have moved forward have brought in experts from all different fields, particularly with respect to the economy, because it's one of the pillars of stability in a society. All these other killings, all these other difficulties that you are seeing is because fundamentally we've refused to look at the priorities. Now, for instance, if a lot of people have said that if you have your oil and gas sector working, for instance, and you refuse to import petroleum products, that as an oil-producing nation will make you to greatly, up to 60% of the overheads to greatly reduce that. Look at a city of like Abuja, where I'm staying now. I hardly even see luxurious state buses and all that kind of a thing. I mean, intra-city buses. What are you talking about here? You are talking about being very extravagant in terms of spending very expensive energy fuel that you import from outside. So it's not really about politics. It's more about looking at the strategic factors that move a nation forward. And until we've been able to address those fundamentals, and until we address those issues pertaining to capacity building, human development, education, basic creature comfort for Nigerians, you will begin to have problems along that line.
Let me get the thoughts of Mr. Balazaka inside, because according to him, it is not really about politics and the politicians. It's about getting the right things in the right place and seeing that the economy moves in that kind of inertia that will result in this kind of development. But we can't take away the fact that monies will come in 2018. But how do you see this affecting the economy in a nutshell?
Well, already we are experiencing, inter and intra-party, exchanges that are already looking clumsy. And I can tell you, the seed of growth and development can only be planted on the soil of peace. So as Nigerians, if we don't create political and social seed for our democracy to thrive, then we are not going to experience economic prosperity. Based on the current political exchanges I'm already seeing, and exchanges of political banters, it is very clear that Nigeria is practicing the politics of exclusion, politics of emasculation, and the politics of vengeance. And that will not lead us to anywhere. It will only lead us to political and economic brick wall or cul-de-sac. From nowhere, we've just discovered that people that used to live as united, friendly friends and families have all of a sudden become bitter political enemies. In the villages, we're experiencing that. In the local governments, we're experiencing that. At the state level, we're experiencing that. And even at the federal level, I don't think that is democracy. And if that is democracy, then I can tell you that that model of democracy is the wrong one. It's satanic, and it will reduce Nigeria to a melancholy country.
Where does the money part of it come in this equation?
Well, this time, when you have exchanges of political banters like that, and people are venomous, because the exchanges now have seen exchanges where the venom is more venomous than the venom of a viper. And when you have something like that, then that means whichever way you look at it, this party will not be comfortable if the other party is succeeding. And if the other party is failing, then this other party will be happy. And that was why I said the ones united, friendly Nigerians and families have all of a sudden become bitter enemies.
Okay, one of the lines that we've also seen has to do with how the political dynamics and that political space is developing at the moment. One very big grand advocate of restructuring, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, moved to the PDP. We saw that coming through at some point. But how much of that kind of political movement do you think, Mr. Galtima Liman in our Abuja studios, how much of that kind of political move do you see pushing in that kind of monies that we're talking about that will either make, mar, or define what we should expect in 2019 and how the economy develops in 2018?
Well, I'm even surprised that you're talking about that there's going to be a massive infusion of monies into the equation. If you had seen the political strategy of the APC-led Buhari administration, is institutionally and tactically withdrawing funds that were used in ways that had not brought about development. So, for instance, you have seen the Treasury single account model that had been rolled out. You've also seen bank verification. I understand from the financial circle that those two elements, those two interventions, had dealt a very severe blow on some of those individuals and institutions that were enmeshed in corruption. And if you see some of the, like my colleague was saying, some of the venomous, statements coming out, could be linked to some kind of frustration that is going on within the economy. One is not supporting a complete movement of these funds into a bureaucratic CBN, but if there is some kind of mechanism that will look at the preservation of public patrimony in terms of the kind of huge funds that were spent in the erstwhile administrations and all that kind of, and could be channeled to effective use to those genuine investments in terms of infrastructure, as I said, in terms of capacity building, then this country can move forward. I'm not even concerned about movements of the likes of the former president Atiku. I've been opportune to have sat down with him one time where I don't know whether he still remembers, and I advised him that moving from one political party to another political party will not be a very good fortune for him, because Nigerians are now growing to the stage where fundamentally they are looking at principled politicians. So if one has to have an ideology, he must stick to that ideology and sell that ideology. And that's why if you see people that have been moving from one political party to another, actually don't have the kind of reputation and respect that, from the electorate.